Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive alien ships that had just appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he hadn't noticed. The defense station's main screen showed 200 warships, each, one bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Amy Torres from her position at the communications console. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. "Put it through," Jake said. He straightened in his chair and tried to look calm. This was humanity's first contact with alien life, and he was the man who had to handle it. The screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. It looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect, with 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the computer translated its words into English. "Primitive beings of the third planet," the alien said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "I am General Zixith of the mighty Kethvar Empire. Your world has been selected for resource extraction. You will surrender immediately and prepare to pay tribute to our great empire. Resistance is futile and will result in the destruction of your species." Jake looked around at his crew. Dr. Lisa Grant, the station's science officer, was shaking her head. She had spent years preparing for first contact, hoping for peaceful communication with alien life. This wasn't what any of them had expected. "Sir?" Amy asked quietly. "What do we tell them?" Jake thought for a moment. Earth had spent 3 centuries preparing for this day. After the last World War ended in 2157, humanity had learned to work together. Every nation had contributed to building Earth's defenses. Hidden weapon platforms orbited the planet. Massive shields protected every major city. The human race had decided long ago that they would never bow to anyone again. "Open a channel," Jake said. The alien general's 4 eyes focused on him with what looked like amusement. "General Zixith," Jake said in his calmest voice. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the unified government of Earth. We have received your message. We decline your generous offer. Please leave our system within 24 hours or we will consider your presence an act of war." For a moment there was complete silence on the alien ship. Then General Zixith began to laugh. It was a horrible sound, like breaking glass mixed with static. "You dare to threaten the Kethvar Empire?" the general said. "We have conquered 10,000 worlds. Your primitive species has barely left its own planet. You have 1 hour to reconsider, or we will demonstrate why resistance is pointless." The transmission ended. Jake turned to Dr. Grant. "Lisa, can you try to reopen diplomatic channels?" he asked. "I'm trying, sir," she said, working frantically at her console. "But they're not responding to any of our attempts at communication." Jake nodded and activated his personal communicator. "Admiral Collins, this is Morrison. The aliens have rejected our peaceful response. They're giving us 1 hour." Admiral Pete Collins's voice came through clearly. "Understood, Captain. Begin activation of the defense grid. All stations are to prepare for hostile action." Across Earth's solar system, hidden weapon platforms began to power up. Massive energy generators that had been built into asteroids came online. Shield generators that protected Earth cities ran through their final system checks. On the moon, weapon batteries that could destroy mountains swiveled toward the alien fleet. Dr. Grant looked up from her console. "Jake, I'm picking up transmissions from their fleet. They're talking about making an example of us. They want to destroy our major cities to show other worlds what happens when you refuse to surrender." "How long until Admiral Collins gives the all clear?" Jake asked. "Defense grid will be fully operational in 30 minutes, Amy reported. Jake watched the alien ships on his screen. They were moving into attack formation, spreading out to surround Earth. It was exactly what human military planners had expected. The aliens were following standard tactics for conquering a primitive world. "Sir," said Lieutenant Ryan Bell from the sensor station, "I'm reading massive energy buildup on their lead ships. They're charging weapons." "All stations. This is Admiral Collins," came the voice over the communication system. "Defense grid is now active. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill." Jake felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. He had trained for this moment his entire career, but he had never expected it to come like this. First contact with alien life should have been a moment of wonder and discovery. Instead, it was the beginning of a war. "Lisa, send a message on all frequencies," Jake ordered. "Tell any other alien species who might be listening that Earth is under attack by the Kethvar Empire. Warn them that these aliens are hostile and aggressive." "But sir, we don't know if there are other species out there," Dr. Grant said. "If there are, they need to know what they're dealing with," Jake replied. The alien fleet finished its positioning. General Zixith's voice came over the communication system again. "Your hour is up, primitive beings. Observe the price of defying the Kethvar Empire." Light erupted from the alien ships. Beams of energy that could melt mountains streaked toward Earth. The attack was massive, coordinated, and designed to destroy every major city on the planet. The energy beams struck Earth's atmosphere and hit something invisible. Massive shields flared to life around every major population center. The alien weapons struck the barriers and were absorbed completely. New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, São Paulo. Every major city on Earth was protected by energy shields that turned the alien bombardment into harmless light. On Jake's screen, he could see the alien ships pause in confusion. Their sensors were probably telling them that their devastating attack had accomplished nothing. "Sir," Amy said with excitement in her voice, "the shields held perfectly. No damage to any city. The civilian population doesn't even know they're under attack." Jake smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. "Send a message to General Zixith. Tell him that Earth's shields are operating at 2% capacity. Tell him that if he wants to see what our weapons can do, he's welcome to continue his attack." Dr. Grant looked at him with wide eyes. "Jake, are you sure we should provoke them?" "Lisa, they came here to destroy us," Jake said. "They've already made their choice. Now we show them what happens when someone picks a fight with the wrong planet." The message was sent. On the main screen, Jake could see the alien fleet, regrouping. General Zixith was probably calling for reinforcements and trying to figure out how a primitive world had just shrugged off an attack that should have killed billions of people. Jake activated his communicator again. "All defense stations, this is Morrison. The aliens have just learned their first lesson about humanity. Let's make sure they remember it." Around Earth, weapon platforms that had been hidden for centuries began to power up. The real battle was about to begin, and the Kethvar Empire was about to discover that they had chosen war with the wrong planet. General Zixith stared at his battle screens in disbelief. His weapons had hit the human planet with enough power to crack continents, but their cities were still there. Worse, his sensors were showing massive energy signatures appearing all around the primitive world. "Commander Veltar," he barked at his second-in-command. "Report on enemy defensive capabilities." "Sir, our scans show weapon platforms hidden throughout their solar system. Energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. These humans have been preparing for war." Zixith's four eyes narrowed. In 1,000 battles across the galaxy, no primitive world had ever survived his opening attack. Something was very wrong here. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements. This world is more advanced than our intelligence indicated." On Earth, Admiral Pete Collins stood in the war room deep beneath the planet's surface. Banks of screens showed the positions of every human ship and weapon platform in the solar system. He had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. "All units, this is Admiral Collins." He spoke into his communicator. "The enemy has revealed their position and intent. Begin Operation Hornet's Nest." Commander Amy Torres was already in her fighter, racing through space toward the alien fleet. Behind her flew 50 other pilots in ships that were invisible to alien sensors. Human stealth technology had been perfected over centuries of warfare on Earth. "Phoenix Squadron. This is Torres," she said into her radio. "Remember, hit fast and disappear. Don't let them get a lock on you." Her ship, no bigger than an alien fighter, carried weapons that could punch holes through the hull of an alien battleship. The humans had learned long ago that it wasn't the size of your weapon that mattered, but how well you used it. The first wave of human fighters struck the alien fleet like ghosts. Plasma bolts erupted from empty space, tearing into alien ships. that couldn't even see what was attacking them. The Kethvar had never faced an enemy they couldn't detect. Captain Ryan Bell commanded the stealth ship Phoenix as it moved through the alien formation. His ship was the size of a small building, but to alien sensors it was completely invisible. "Target the command ship," he told his weapons officer. "Let's see how their general likes being on the receiving end." The Phoenix fired a single shot. The beam of concentrated energy struck General Zixith's flagship and burned through its shields like they were made of paper. The alien ship's hull cracked and atmosphere began venting into space. On his bridge, Zixith felt his ship shake as human weapons found their mark. Alarms were ringing, and his crew was shouting damage reports. "Sir, we're being attacked by invisible ships," Commander Veltar reported. "Our sensors can't track them. We've lost 12 vessels in the last 10 minutes. "Impossible," Zixith snarled. "No primitive species has stealth technology." But as he watched, another of his ships exploded for no apparent reason. Then another. The humans were picking apart his fleet piece by piece, and he couldn't even see them coming. Major Dan Clark led his team of soldiers aboard a damaged alien ship. They had used a small transport to dock with the enemy vessel while it was distracted by the fighter attack. Now they were inside, moving through corridors designed for creatures very different from humans. "Stay alert," Dan whispered to his men. "We don't know what kind of defenses they have inside their ships." But as they moved deeper into the alien vessel, Dan realized something surprising. The ship's design was inefficient. The aliens had built it for intimidation rather than function. There were huge empty spaces that served no purpose except to make the ship look bigger. "Team 2, secure the engine room," Dan ordered. "Team 1, head for the bridge. Let's see what we can learn about these invaders." The alien crew they encountered were tough fighters, but they seemed confused by human tactics. The Kethvar were used to fighting enemies who used similar strategies to their own. They didn't know how to deal with humans who thought differently. Dr. Nick Hayes watched from Earth's primary weapons platform as his designs proved their worth in battle. The plasma cannons he had spent 20 years perfecting were cutting through alien ships like knives through cloth. "Increase power to the main batteries," he told his technicians. "Let's show these invaders what real weapons look like." The hidden weapon platforms around Earth opened fire simultaneously. Beams of energy that could be seen from space reached out toward the alien fleet. Each shot was precisely aimed, striking alien ships at their weakest points. The Kethvar had never faced weapons like these. Their own energy beams were powerful but crude. The human weapons were works of art, designed with centuries of scientific knowledge and practical experience. General Zixith watched his fleet fall apart around him. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost over 100 ships. The humans had lost nothing. Their fighters appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before his weapons could target them. "Sir," Commander Veltar said urgently, "the humans are jamming our communications. We can't contact High Command." "Then send a courier ship," Zixith ordered. "Break through their lines and get word to Admiral Corksval. Tell him to bring the full battle fleet. Tell him we need 5,000 ships." A small, fast alien vessel broke away from the main fleet and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Captain Ryan Bell tried to intercept it, but the courier ship was too quick. "Admiral Collins, this is Bell," he reported. "One enemy ship has escaped. They're probably calling for reinforcements." "Understood, Captain," Collins replied. "Continue the attack. We need to finish this fleet before help arrives." But even as the human forces pressed their advantage, Dr. Lisa Grant was working on a different kind of warfare. She had been sending messages to every star system within communication, range warning other species about the Kethvar Empire. "Jake," she called to Captain Morrison, "I'm getting responses. There are 12 different alien species out there, and they all have stories about Kethvar attacks. Some of them want to help us fight." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The immediate battle was going well, but if the aliens called for reinforcements, Earth might face thousands of enemy ships. "What kind of help are they offering?" he asked. "Information mostly," Lisa replied. "Technical data about Kethvar weapons and ships. One species called the Vorthon says they've been fighting the Empire for 50 years. They want to coordinate attacks." "Put me through to Admiral Collins," Morrison said. When the connection was established, Morrison explained the situation. "Sir, we have potential allies throughout the galaxy, species that have been oppressed by the Kethvar Empire. If we can coordinate with them, we might be able to turn this from a defensive battle into something bigger." Collins was quiet for a moment. "Captain, are you suggesting we go on the offensive?" "Sir, these aliens came here to destroy us. They've probably done the same thing to hundreds of other worlds. Maybe it's time someone stood up to them." In space, the battle continued. Commander Torres led her fighters in another attack run while Major Clark's teams gathered intelligence from captured alien ships. The humans were learning fast, adapting their tactics with every engagement. General Zixith realized he was facing something he had never encountered before, an enemy that was not only technologically advanced, but also tactically superior. They humans fought like they had been preparing for this war their entire lives, and perhaps, he thought with growing dread, they had been. Admiral Corksval arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system with 5,000 warships. He expected to find General Zixith celebrating victory over another primitive world. Instead, he found 47 damaged alien ships hiding behind one of the system's outer planets. "What is the meaning of this?" Corksval demanded when Zixith appeared on his communication screen. The general looked beaten and afraid. "Admiral, the humans are not what we expected," Zixith said. "They have weapons and technology beyond our understanding. They destroyed over half my fleet in 2 days." Corksval's massive form shook with anger. He was twice the size of Zixith and had conquered more worlds than any other Kethvar commander. No primitive species had ever stood against him. "You are weak, Zixith," he snarled. "Watch how a real warrior deals with these insects." But as his fleet moved toward Earth, Corksval saw something that made him pause. The human planet was surrounded by thousands of ships. Massive orbital shipyards were working day and night, building new vessels with incredible speed. The planet's moon had been turned into a fortress covered with weapon batteries. Fleet Admiral Jack Stone stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiance. He had been placed in command of all Earth's military forces just 3 days ago. Around him, 500 human ships waited in perfect formation. "Admiral, the alien fleet is approaching," reported Captain Beth Miller from the intelligence station. 5,000 ships, just like our sources predicted. Stone nodded. The information from other alien species had been invaluable. The Vorthan rebels had provided detailed plans of Kethvar ships. The Zephyrians had shared their knowledge of alien tactics. 12 different species were now working together to fight the Empire. "Open a channel to the lead alien ship," Stone ordered. Admiral Corksval's ugly face appeared on the main screen. His 4 eyes glowed with hatred. "I am Admiral Corksval of the Kethvar Empire," he announced. "You will surrender immediately, or face complete destruction." Stone looked at him, calmly. "I am Fleet Admiral Jack Stone of Earth. You have 3 minutes to leave this system. This is your only warning." Corksval laughed, a sound like breaking metal. 3 minutes? I have 5,000 ships, human. You have barely 500. Your mathematics are as primitive as your species. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Stone replied. The alien admiral's laughter stopped. He had never met a species that didn't show fear when facing overwhelming odds. These humans acted like they held all the advantages. "Attack formation," Corksval ordered his fleet. "Destroy them all." The battle that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Massacre at Sol. The Kethvar expected their massive numerical advantage to decide the fight quickly. Instead, they discovered that humans had spent centuries learning how to fight against superior numbers. Commander Tony Parker's research teams had been working around the clock since the first battle. They had taken apart captured Kethvar weapons and improved them beyond recognition. Human ships now carried alien energy cannons that were twice as powerful as the originals. "Fire at will," Admiral Stone commanded. The human fleet didn't attack in straight lines like the aliens expected. Instead, they moved in 3-dimensional patterns that seemed to dance around the enemy formation. Human ships supported each other in ways the rigid Kethvar hierarchy couldn't understand. Captain Kate Woods led Phoenix Squadron in a diving attack that came from above and below simultaneously. Her fighters moved like a school of fish, each one part of a larger pattern that confused the alien targeting systems. Remember your training, she told her pilots. Stay together, watch each other's backs, and trust your wingmen. The HFY had never fought an enemy that worked as a team. Their own forces followed strict chains of command, with each ship fighting as an individual unit. The humans fought as one organism, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship would be. On the planet Vorthon Prime, thousands of light years away, rebel forces watched the battle through hidden communications arrays. Captain Beth Miller had established a network that allowed oppressed species throughout the galaxy to coordinate their resistance efforts. The humans are winning, reported Commander Vextar of the Vorthon rebels. Their tactics are incredible. They're making the HFY look like children. Similar messages were being sent across 200 worlds. Species that had been conquered by the Empire for centuries were seeing their oppressors defeated for the first time. Hope was spreading faster than HFY reinforcements could travel. Colonel Matt Foster commanded the first human ground assault on a HFY world. Planet Xerion had been a slave labor camp for 50 years, where the aliens forced captured species to mine rare metals. Foster's mission was to liberate the prisoners and establish a human base of operations. Remember, we're not here to conquer, he told his troops as their ships approached the planet. We're here to free people who have been slaves. Treat the prisoners as allies, not enemies. The HFY garrison on Xerion expected a typical invasion. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that turned their own slaves against them. The moment human soldiers appeared, the prisoner populations rose in revolt. Sir, the slaves are attacking our guard posts, reported the HFY commander on Xerion. They have weapons we didn't know existed. The weapons had come from human supply drops that had been secretly delivered to resistance movements across the galaxy. Simple, effective guns that could punch through HFY armor. The oppressed species finally had the tools to fight back. Admiral Corksaval watched his great fleet fall apart around him. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost 3,000 ships. The humans had lost less than 50. His tactical officers were reporting impossible things. Sir, the enemy ships are coordinating their attacks across multiple star systems, one officer reported. They're receiving real-time intelligence from rebel forces throughout the Empire. Impossible, Corksaval snarled. Our communications are secure. But they weren't. Captain Beth Miller's intelligence network had been intercepting HFY messages for weeks. Human codebreakers had cracked their communication systems and were now feeding information to rebel forces across the galaxy. On Earth, Dr. Sue Johnson worked frantically to coordinate diplomatic efforts with the new alien allies. Species that had never trusted each other were now working together to fight their common enemy. Admiral Stone, she reported, we have confirmation of uprisings on 57 HFY worlds. The Empire is fighting on dozens of fronts simultaneously. Stone smiled as he watched another alien battleship explode on his tactical display. How many of their worlds are still loyal to the Empire? Intelligence suggests less than half, sir. Many HFY civilians want to surrender rather than continue fighting. The revolution was spreading faster than anyone had expected. What had started as Earth's defensive war was becoming a galaxy-wide liberation movement. Human ideals of freedom and cooperation were inspiring species that had forgotten what it meant to be free. Admiral Corksaval realized he was facing total defeat. His mighty fleet was scattered, his empire was collapsing, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. Retreat, he ordered his remaining ships. Fall back to HFY Prime. But even as his forces fled, Corksaval knew the truth. The HFY Empire had chosen war with the wrong planet, and now the entire galaxy was turning against them. 6 months after the first alien ships appeared at Earth, President Ellen Ross stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. The Great Hall on the space station New Hope held representatives from 200 worlds that had once been part of the HFY Empire. Today marks the beginning of a new age, President Ross said to the assembled crowd. An age where no species will bow to another, an age where freedom and cooperation replace fear and oppression. The audience included creatures of every shape and size imaginable. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and some like nothing humans had ever seen before. But they all had one thing in common. They were free for the first time in centuries. Admiral Rick Davis commanded the largest fleet in galactic history as it approached Kethvar Prime, the Empire's homeworld. 10,000 ships from dozens of different species traveled together toward the final battle. Human vessels flew alongside former enemies who had become allies. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," reported Captain Tim Rogers from the communications station. "Put it through," Davis ordered. The face that appeared on the screen was different from the other Kethvar they had encountered. This one looked older, more tired. His four eyes held no anger, only sadness. "I am Emperor Kraxthul, ruler of what remains of the Kethvar Empire," the alien said. "I wish to discuss terms of surrender." Davis was surprised. He had expected the Kethvar to fight to the death rather than admit defeat. "Your Majesty, I am Admiral Rick Davis of the Galactic Freedom Alliance. We are prepared to accept your surrender, but there are conditions." "Name them," the Emperor said quietly. "First, all slave labor camps must be shut down immediately. Second, all conquered species must be granted their freedom. Third, the Kethvar military must be disbanded. Fourth, your government must be restructured to allow democratic participation from all species on Kethvar worlds." Emperor Kraxthul was silent for a long moment. These terms meant the end of everything his people had built over thousands of years, but he had seen the reports from across his former empire. World after world had risen in revolt, inspired by human ideals of freedom. "I accept your terms," he said finally, "but I request a private meeting with your President Ross. There are things she should know about the galaxy." 3 days later, President Ross met with Emperor Kraxthul aboard the neutral station where the surrender documents would be signed. The meeting room was simple, with just 2 chairs and a table between them. "You are not what I expected from a leader of primitives," Kraxthul said as he studied the human president. "And you are not what I expected from a galactic tyrant," Ross replied. "You seem reasonable for someone who has spent centuries conquering other worlds." The old emperor sighed, a sound like wind through dry leaves. "I have ruled the Kethvar for 1,000 years, President Ross. I have seen our empire grow from a single world to 10,000 systems, but I have also seen what that growth cost us." "What do you mean?" Ross asked. "We became so focused on conquest that we forgot why we started expanding in the first place. We were running from something, you see. Long ago, our home world was dying. We had no choice but to find new places to live. But somewhere along the way, survival became domination." Ross leaned forward. "What were you running from?" "Ourselves," Kraxthul said simply. "We were afraid that if we stopped conquering, someone else would conquer us. Fear drove us to become the very thing we were trying to escape." "And now?" Ross asked. "Now we have learned something from your species. We have learned that there is another way to survive. Instead of dominating others, you chose to work with them. Instead of ruling through fear, you inspire through hope." The signing ceremony took place the next day. Emperor Kraxthul signed the surrender documents with a shaking hand, officially ending the Kethvar Empire after 3,000 years of existence. But the real work was just beginning. Dr. Sue Johnson led teams of diplomats to help establish new governments on former Kethvar worlds. Captain Tim Rogers commanded special forces that liberated the last prison camps and slave colonies. Commander Tony Parker worked with alien scientists to share human technology freely with all species. On the former slave world of Zerion, Colonel Matt Foster watched as the last prison walls were torn down. The freed slaves were building new cities, designed not for efficiency, but for beauty and comfort. Children of a dozen different species played together in parks that had once been labor camps. "Colonel, we're getting reports from across the galaxy," his aide reported. "The transition is going better than anyone expected. Most Kethvar civilians are cooperating with the new governments." Foster nodded. "People want to be free, regardless of what species they are. Even the Kethvar are discovering that freedom feels better than fear. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some Kethvar military leaders tried to start rebellions, hoping to restore the old empire, but they found little support from their own people. The younger generation of Kethvar had grown tired of endless wars and welcomed the chance for peace. Captain Beth Miller, now head of the Alliance Intelligence Service, worked to track down the remaining war criminals. But even this job was easier than expected. Many former Kethvar commanders turned themselves in, tired of running and hiding. President Ross, she reported during one of their weekly meetings. The last of the Empire's military leaders have been captured. The transition to democratic governments is complete on 90% of former Kethvar worlds. What about the remaining 10%? Ross asked. Those worlds never wanted to be part of the Empire in the first place. They're declaring independence and setting up their own governments. Some are asking to join the Alliance, others want to remain neutral. Ross smiled. Let them choose their own path. That's what freedom means. 10 years later, the former Kethvar Empire had become the Galactic Democratic Union. Earth served as the unofficial capital, not because humans demanded it, but because other species trusted human leadership. The humans had proven that they conquered not to rule, but to liberate. Admiral Jack Stone, now retired, often visited the memorial on Earth that honored all species who had died fighting for freedom. The memorial included Kethvar names alongside human ones, because many aliens had died fighting against their own empire. Emperor Kraxthul, now simply called Kraxthul the Elder, lived quietly on Earth. He had become an advisor to President Ross, helping her understand the complex politics of galactic civilization. Do you ever regret losing your empire? Ross asked him one day as they walked through the memorial garden. No, he said without hesitation. I spent 1,000 years ruling through fear. These past 10 years, watching species work together as equals have taught me more about leadership than all my centuries as emperor. What did we teach you? Ross asked. That the strongest empires are not built on conquest, but on cooperation. That the best leaders are not those who demand obedience, but those who inspire others to greatness. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. The Kethvar Empire had chosen war with the wrong planet, but in losing that war, they had gained something more valuable than any conquest. They had gained freedom, not just for themselves, but for everyone. Humanity's greatest victory was not military, but moral. They had shown an entire galaxy that there was a better way to live. Freedom was not just a human idea anymore. It belonged to everyone.